actually more retired firefighters than we have active. So we gave a pay increase to every firefighter of 3%, even while the existing firefighters may not have had an increase like that. We have major, major problems. And right now, both gubernatorial candidates, I asked Bill Brady the other day, and I said, Senator, are you going to agree to doing one of two things? Number one, make the case that we can apply pension reform not just to future employees, but to current employees. There's the idea that you can work one day as a policeman or fireman, and then the rest of your career, and the rest of your life, and your spouse's life, we have to give you this deal? That seems absurd to me, but that's how many have been interpreting it. And I said, by the way, if you don't agree with that, would you be willing to make it easier for municipalities to file bankruptcy, like GM and Chrysler did last year? Right? Yeah, GM's making money again. And they got a chance to rewrite a lot of their pension system, their retirement system. We as municipalities, because of the political system, my opinion is we're going to be dragged along in this process of politics, especially in Illinois, until the bond market faces the real risk. Hear me now, believe me later. Don't be surprised if headlines in the coming months ahead start talking about the municipal bond market crisis. Has anybody already heard that? All right, so if you follow that trail, what they're going to say is something like this. Municipalities who are stuck with all these rules, like ours, we have bonds out there to build roads, to build infrastructure, you name it, schools, whatever it is. This is really local government, not just cities, counties, school districts, you name them. Those folks issue bonds, and this is a big business. And these bonds get traded all over the world. People are buying these bonds. And if we come to find out, like there's just been a handful of municipalities, some out in California, one or two out on the East Coast, Pennsylvania, if they can't make their bond payment, crisis starts. Because, sir, it's one municipality, it's another one, and then there's going to be, believe me, they'll be talking about a bailout. And what I've said is this, the taxpayer should not have to foot the bill for malfeasance in the management of these organizations when it is imminently fixable. This does not take a rocket scientist. It's the common sense of every taxpayer who knows you can't afford to let somebody retire. Who gets to retire at age 53? Really? With guaranteed, you're paid with 10 years of retirement, you're going to be making more as a retiree than you ever did when you were an active employee in terms of your salary. So these are the types of reforms that I'm trying to push for within my position as mayor. It's a very hard thing to do because there's a lot of mixed messages that get crafted in this. People have said, I'm against public safety, I'm against firemen, you know, apple pie, you name it. But the truth of the matter is, it takes some digging in, and I applaud everybody here for digging into these issues.
I'm just going to throw a softball at you here, okay? Ulysses S. Arndt right here and myself came up with a proposal for city councils to look at condemning the federal government. I read that at the city council a couple of months ago, and basically it was a condemnation of the federal government for taking an inordinate amount of taxes that cities are not able to. Because of that, cities are not even able to meet their budgets also. What do you think of that proposal? Will you sign on to that?
Well, you know, I'm trying to practice, and I paid very close attention to the presentation when it was made. As a matter of fact, that's around the times, I think, when we scheduled, start talking about having a chance to come in and talk to the group. My frank opinion is this. In our world today, actions speak a heck of a lot louder than words. And the danger, I'm sure you experience it, and it's when I told you that little anecdote about what happened this morning, people trying to misconstrue statements like that. And my belief is this. I want it to be effective. I want to demonstrate to you that I'm fiscally responsible, that I'm doing my part to make the types of changes that support local control, local government, and you know, I didn't get into too much of my philosophy about what's happened with the bureaucracy movement at the federal government, but it's a huge, huge problem. And you know, I am a believer in reading the Constitution at its face value, not reading into it a lot of extra stuff that we tend to do. But I also know I'm very careful. You can ask on a number of different resolutions that we move through council. if it's going to be effective, if it's going to be more than just words on a piece of paper, it's got to have buy-in from the whole council. And one of the things I think, quite frankly, that has to happen for us to be able to continue to move the agenda forward in the areas where we may be in agreement is that there's a strong exercise of people showing up at our city council through the process saying, here's the principles, you better fix it. Because right now, I know otherwise, we could sign on to a statement like that and it gets, thrown into the circular file thereafter by folks.
Right.
And there's no action on it.
Right.
So, I can't remember all the terms of it, but essentially the provisions about being able to manage our own affairs and have a limited form of government are all principles I believe in. And I think our movement, the good news, bad news about where we're at in the economy, bad news is a lot of people are out of work, times are tough. The good news, if you think about it, is it's forcing us in government to dramatically change. We will be a much smaller government in 5 years at the city of Rockford. We're trying to follow, I sometimes joked about it, but the McChesney Park model of government. Anybody from McChesney Park? McChesney Park has got a much smaller government. It's, I think 13 full-time employees for a town of 25,000 people. Why did they? Well, they came about a heck of a lot later than other governments. For us, I see us becoming smaller. I see us following those principles, but it really needs to be, I think, a partnership. So it's not just a document. I think we could have further discussions on it to see where we go, but we might have to. We'd have to have a more engaged discussion with the entire city council.
Fair enough. Who's got questions?
Mayor, 2 questions. 1, what do you want us to do? And 2, what do you think of a law that says all union contracts made by the city have to be approved by the people?
Yes.
Well, 2 things, Bob. I appreciate your presentations at our city council. Does everybody know you've been coming?
Yeah, no, they don't know.
Robert has been educating myself and a number of our council members on gold standard and Federal Reserve and a whole lot of interesting issues. And frankly, these are issues. I've got a buddy who is heavily involved in economics in our, in his job, and he and I have had a number of conversations about the Federal Reserve and some of the crazy things that happen in monetary policy. It's an area that there's not a whole lot of traditional education for our citizens on it, so I appreciate that. But I think right now what we need to do is 2 things. Number 1, at the local level, be present, let your voices be heard, but you can't let people stereotype your message. Because I'm telling you, just like I got that message earlier today, people might say Tea Party, add in some pejorative statement about it and then try to discount your message. So I think the message has to be, we already pay too much. Here's what we think was going to be a good solution for our community, and we're going to bring that message both to Rockford and to Springfield. I would love to be able to say you only needed to show up at City Council, but it's very clear what has happened, which is that the control exerted out of Springfield and Washington has taken over a lot of our local ability to make the changes. So I'd say show up, be involved, and then what was the second part of your question?
What do you think of a law saying that people have to vote on union contracts?
John Guile, I don't know if John is involved in any of these meetings. John Guile once, I was one of the few mayors, I'm involved in a group called the Illinois Municipal League. For that to happen, what you're describing, my guess is, and I sometimes say I'm a recovering lawyer, I still remember some of the law that I've practiced in, but my guess is we would probably have to rewrite our state constitution to allow it to be a legally binding thing. Now, to be a voluntary thing that a council lives by, that could, we could say that we want to do that. The problem is, the unions control Springfield, right now at least. And so if you wanted to make that change, you either have to get the law changed or a constitutional change. If the constitution changed, John Guile was the guy saying he'd support home rule if you could have a local charter, designing essentially your local governance model. I really don't have a problem with that, because I certainly have a lot more faith in us locally governing ourselves than they rely on in Springfield. Is that it's 3 hours away, and so if everybody's working, doing their business, who gets to go down to Springfield? So I would support something along those lines in the form of a local charter if it were legally possible.
Mayor Morrissey, I heard that they had a closed door meeting and they agreed to a 10% cut for all non-union workers. Does that include you
Well, two things.
and all the rest of them, like the city administrator? If you got rid of him, you'd save a whole lot of money.
Right. Two things. Number one, there was no closed session meeting where there was agreement to take a 10% across the board cut applied to all the citizens. That didn't happen unless it was a meeting I wasn't invited to that I didn't know about. But in terms of that did not happen. Number one. Number two, which gets to the point about how and this has been a hot topic for in recent discussions. How do we manage our organization? Who do we pay at the top levels, and how does that compare to what we pay other folks? Let me just, to answer that question, let me ask another. I'm a full-time mayor. I don't know if you all realize that. Other folks who are mayors, maybe part-time mayors, it just depends. Governments throughout Illinois have some flexibility in how they organize. Rockford happens to be a place where you have a full-time mayor. My salary is $94,000 a year. Where do you think I fall in terms of the top 100 employees? Do you think I'm the highest paid person at the city? Lowest paid person? Any idea?
Mid-range.
The top 100. What do you think? The last I checked, I fell from, I think, 2 years ago I was about 70, I think. I think right now I'm just about falling off the list. 90 something in that list, the top 100 folks. And I say that to people, and they sometimes act surprised. Well, you're the CEO, aren't you? At least on paper. That's what I'm supposed to be. The elected are the people of the community elect me to run this job as the chief elected official of the organization. But I'm certainly not even close to the highest paid person. What I've said, and this remark sometimes gets misconstrued, what I've said about the way I think I've inherited the office of mayor, we turn the tables. Management, the people at the top, including the mayor, who you think should be running the organization, we haven't been running the organization. The employee unions, because they write the checks and they have the influence, have had a heck of a lot to do with how the organization's been managed. Now, certainly I would say at the end of the day, management is responsible. If we don't like it, we got to make changes. And we have to broadcast those changes. And we've been very public about the need to make those changes. But our city administrator, Jim Ryan's not even the highest paid employee at the city, although he's the chief operating officer of the city. The highest paid employee of the city, if I remember, as a group, if I remember correctly, in terms of the numbers of folks, are folks, as you can imagine, in law enforcement. A sergeant, I believe it is, in the police department. Remember, sergeant's an interesting thing in the city of Rockford. The rank of sergeant is a management position. However, in Rockford, those sergeants are in the same union as all the other city police officers. So think of this interesting one. You can be a supervisor as a sergeant, but the rank and file guy beneath you is president of the police union. So what type of influence do you think that makes on the day-to-day workings of our organization? It's to me it's not a sane way of running a business.
No.
It is a bizarre way to run a business. People always say, run City Hall like a business. Believe me, we're trying. You would not do the things that we do in a normal way that the private sector works. Our city administrator, I think, makes $112,000 or $114,000 a year. The sergeants, and by the way, these guys work a lot of hours and they do a lot of very good work. I just happen to think they should be in an exempt position. They should be in a non-union position because they're doing management work. And I wouldn't mind paying them a higher base salary than they're getting paid today. But what I don't like is sometimes the games that end up being encouraged when your base salary may be $67,000, but you're taking home $120,000. Why? Because you're booking overtime hours.
Government needs to be reformed.
Well,
Really.
In its core management, this is detailed management of the operations run.